Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our Creek Show virtual artist talk today. Today, I'm going to be talking to TwoPlus Collaborative about their Creek Show 2017 installation, Blind Spot. Hi, Claire. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Homer.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So tell me a little bit about yourselves and the inspiration behind your installation.
Yeah, so I'm Claire Van Montfrans.
And I'm Elizabeth Farrell.
And we work on public art projects together as TwoPlus Collaborative. In addition to working as architects at different practices, we're both alumni of the UT Austin Master of Architecture program. And we currently both do not live in Austin. I live in Grand Junction, Colorado, and Elizabeth is in Marfa. So we're super stoked to get to participate in Creek Show virtually this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so our piece was Blind Spot. And I guess basically the installation was a series of mirror columns that were scattered around the path crossing the creek. And we also had an element of projection, which showed your view from a bicycle cycling around Austin. So the things we were thinking about, we wanted to create a spatial experience. Since we're both architects, we're usually thinking about how you occupy a space. So we really wanted the installation to be something that you move through. And then we were thinking about how to layer in some of the ideas that Waterloo is pushing and that is interesting to us as well about creating more pedestrian-oriented space in Austin. And so that's where the cycling video came in, because we're both big cyclists ourselves. And so we thought that added a exciting visual element and then also had a little bit of an underlying message.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is another really cool shot. I like the placement. You know, y'all got a really good spot on these, the stone little path over the creek.
Yeah, we were excited about that location for sure.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So the installation process is always a unique experience for all of our artist teams. So can you tell me a little bit about some challenges that may have occurred during the installation process?
Yeah, totally. I think for both of us working as architects, it was our first foray into design build. And even on such a small installation-based project, it was still full of challenges, I would say. And it was really unique, right? You're installing something in the water that you have to deal with a lot of dynamic forces, both people moving through and then the physical water itself. The first thing we did, and you can see it in the next image potentially, was we built some full-scale mock-ups and took them out there made of plywood, just to kind of get a sense for how big these things should be. And that was a challenge in and of itself. Like, they're triangular, and so trying to physically fabricate something triangular was really an interesting challenge, and then trying to hold them up right was also an interesting challenge. So I think we kind of dove right in and really enjoyed this process of getting the mock-ups out on site. It was a really immediate process, like a great feedback loop of sort of, you know, taking the very general rendering that we submitted and trying to make it into a real thing. So we started with these full-scale mock-ups, and then the actual material that these were made out of was stainless steel. So bent stainless steel that was then glued up into this triangular form and attached with fasteners to these bases that you see in that right image that were made of steel angle. And so a couple of the interesting challenges of working with stainless steel was just trying to not mar the surface, right? So it's really a sensitive material, and we didn't want any sort of warping or like, fun house kind of effects of where if you push on it and make a dent, it creates this huge warp of the reflection. So we were trying to keep them as pristine as possible, which was definitely a challenge. And then leveling them was also a pretty interesting challenge in and of itself. And I think this was also a good design change that we made. Like, I think when we first rendered it and we're thinking about it, we kind of had them all lined up evenly at the top. And once we got our mock-ups out there and discovered the really drastic shift in the creek at this point, so on one side it's quite a bit higher, the riverbed is quite a bit higher than the other side. We sort of tweaked that a little bit and allowed them to be different heights, and we actually ended up they were also maybe going to be the same size, and you can see on the image on the left we ended up shifting the size as well so that there was two sort of things that were varying. And then so right, we actually used rocks from the creek bed to level the feet, because we had designed these feet that would be able to be leveled as kind of a tripod strategy. But in the end, there were much taller things to contend with in the creek bed. So we grabbed what we had on hand with small rocks and made that work. And I think for the most part, that went really well. We were also pretty horrified in years past. They had big rains during Creek Show, and like people's whole installations had drifted away. So we were pretty worried about that and ended up installing or just placing really some super heavy steel on top of the legs once they were in the creek. And thankfully we did not have any disappear on us, which was really great.
Here's another great photo. Yeah, I think it's just so fascinating, just hearing, how all these installations from concept to, the actual Creek Show, it's really interesting to see how they evolve throughout that process, because you start to take in all these, it starts to go through all these different elements, and you kind of have to work around that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we took away, was that you can't totally plan everything from the beginning. It's important to be able to make adjustments during the process. So as advice to future Creek Show teams.
Yeah, that's a good segue. For any architects or artists that are watching that are interested in submitting for next year's Creek Show, do you have any words of wisdom for them just based off of your experience with Blind Spot?
Yeah, right. Don't try to plan everything in advance, I think. Like, I think we gave ourselves, I think typically the schedule you find out in March, and then you're doing the installation in November. So there's a lot of time, and there's also not a lot of time. So kind of using your time wisely and, giving yourself enough time to think about lead times on materials and stuff like that, but not kind of overly planning, because there is a lot that you learn just when you're building the piece and installing it, and it's good to be flexible. And I think we had some things that like the projector that we had to come and turn off and on every night, and I think the more hands-off your piece can be, the less crazy you'll feel during that 10-day period. So
yeah, and I would say another thing that I'm not sure we really planned for, but we got a lot of comments about the fact that our piece looked good in the daytime also. And that was a really interesting thing. Like, it was nice to be down there in it in the daytime. And the reality is that it's up for 10 days, right? So the potential for experiencing it in the daytime is also very real and present. And so that was sort of an added bonus to our piece, I think, in the end. And something that I think it would be cool to see other pieces kind of take that on, even though it's not really explicitly part of the prompt, right? Like, it's mostly about nighttime experience, lighting. But it was really cool to be there in the daytime too. So that would be just sort of plug that I would make and like to see.
Yeah, that's a really great point. all the Creek Show installations are so, you know, fascinating in the dark, but it is a whole different experience in the daytime. You know, you get to see all the greenery and the water flowing, and yeah, that's really, really great advice. So just looking at these photos, you see a lot of people walking through. What's something that you hope the community took away from experiencing Blind Spot?
Do you want to start, Claire?
I'll go, yeah. I guess, I think, you know, we really like the ability of public art to convey information in the built environment from an experiential standpoint, right? Like people get to, and especially from a temporary standpoint, it's this short duration, people get to be down there. And so I think, you know, the idea of invigorating and bringing life to a typically, you know, underutilized and unknown part of Austin was really important to us, and was kind of the play on the name, like the name Blind Spot, right? That the whole creek is effectively in Austin's blind spot, like nobody really sees it or experiencing it. And so that was a bit of where the mirrors came from too. Like, how do you sort of reframe a space you might have been in before in a new way that makes you realize something new about it, and kind of asks you to question, you know, what its role is in the city and what your role is in the space. And so I think in general, like, I think that's sort of the objective of the piece. And then, you know, as part of Creek Show, like, we just hope that the general public continues to get super excited about public art and public spaces like this in the future.
Well said. Well said. Do you have anything to add, Elizabeth?
I think Claire hit all the main points. Yeah, I agree with all that.
You really did. You nailed it. Let's see. I think, is this our last photo? We might have, oh, okay, yes. Yeah, well, do y'all have any other final thoughts or comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, we think it's great that you guys are doing all these virtual programs, because like we said, we're not even in Austin, so it's great to be able to participate. So even though we can't have the event as per years past, it's really exciting to get to be part of the virtual events. So
Yes, it's so exciting, and it's really great just to kind of showcase all the really amazing art installations from past Creek shows. You know, next year Waterloo Park will be open, so we're really looking forward to Creek Show 2021 and seeing what that'll look like.
Sounds
yeah, that'll
great.
be great.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful. A good thing to look forward to 2021.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Claire and Elizabeth. It was great chatting with y'all.
Yeah, thank you,
me
Homer.
too. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's great.
And thank you all so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for more conversations with past Creek Show artists on Facebook Live. And don't forget to check out the illuminated Moody Amphitheater at Waterloo Park through this Sunday, November 22nd. It's going to be lit up from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. every night. You know, while this year's Creek Show is not taking place in its traditional in-person format, we're really excited to invite the community to drive by Waterloo Park and get a sneak peek at the really amazing progress. Special thanks to BBVA, 3M, The Word Company, and Waterloo Media for helping us commemorate the creative, cultural, and imaginative legacy of Creek Show. Thank you all so much again for watching. Check out our full virtual artist talk lineup at creekshow.com, and we'll see you again next time. Bye, y'all.